19th meeting of the Development Review Board to order. Are there any agenda changes?
I'd like to add some feedback as far as the new room setup in the other business towards the end. And I'd also like to just move the review of the Francis. Okay. I just request that we move the deliberation on the Francis decision to the end.
Okay, well, I'm sure everybody will be amenable to that. So while Dick's taking off his coat, and before I yield the vice chair seat, why don't we review the minutes of the last meeting, and then I'll yield the floor to Dick. I had no comments on the minutes. Dawn's fantastic as always.
I had no
You
changes.
guys get better every time. Deafening silence from colleagues on the board.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Dick, I think you're back in charge.
Okay.
Let's see, so first order of business is Sherry Willett, Deborah Campbell, final plat review for proposed two-lot subdivision. Frankly, I don't remember exactly where we left off. The thing I recall was the culvert under the driveway to make sure it could handle whatever flow was there.
Well, I think we can basically say it was stormwater and the water wastewater system. I think those were the items of concern.
Neighbors' septic concerns.
So yes, there was a letter from a neighbor.
Wastewater, and we do have, actually we have several neighbors that are here, but the concern, and I'll just kind of come a little close on this, but the concern was here's the leach field, here's the well. Actually, pretty much all the concerns, all the concerns are kind of in this area because we're talking about the curtain drain, the closeness of the leach field to the well, and the stormwater upgrades or situation. Am I catching everything? Okay. So we do have Ron LaRose here who can speak for the applicant.
Okay, so the only new stuff we got was the wastewater permit, I think, came in this week.
As well as a letter of concern, an email of concern.
Right.
From Scott and Rose Webb, who are here tonight.
Okay, so I guess since there's no documentation on stormwater, if somebody can just explain what they've discovered in the last few weeks regarding stormwater, and how whatever culvert and their ditching and whatever is going to be able to handle stormwater coming down. Not sure who's presenting.
Mr. Rose?
I'm Ron Rose, land surveyor from Bristol, representing Debbie and Sherry. As you know, it's a proposed two-lot subdivision, and the issues, as was already brought to the table, were the amending the stormwater permit and the concern of the location of this proposed septic system on the undeveloped lot in close proximity to the well across Mead Road. The stormwater permit, I'll leave this with you. This is from Green Mountain Engineering, who did the original stormwater permit. They've been engaged by Debbie and Sherry to amend it, and they will address those issues along the road, the driveway, around the building site, and around the septic site. So I'll leave this here for your records.
So is this something we have not seen?
Correct.
Just got it.
I'm
So
guessing he wants
the
probably
concern was
to
the
speak toward the
stormwater was
microphone.
just, stormwater was just permitted, how many years ago?
Oh, no, we've been current with our stormwater. I'm a neighbor on the road, and I've been de facto liaison to the state, Paul Anderson. And, here, take that. When the first sale happened after the Bianchi decision, 15, 18 years ago, we had to clean things up. A transaction happens, hey, we've got a lot of paperwork. That's when we made sure our stormwater permit was proper. It's never required additional engineering to the system itself, but we do an annual inspection, we do it every 5-year recertification with an engineering service. We're absolutely compliant. And my concern, which was voiced at this last meeting, was that this subdivision, this lot subdivision was about to take place with no mention of a stormwater permit. And I want to make sure it becomes part of the Mead Farm Road Association, which is an association in name only for the stormwater permit, and that's what I sought to have addressed. I want to assure you we are very compliant in our stormwater permit. It's about getting this next lot onto the road was my concern.
Now, I'm not sure when Green Mountain Engineering is going to do their thing and to amend that stormwater permit, but they have been engaged, contracts have been signed, and deposit has been made. So that is in the works, and that's what that letter so states. And the other issue is well, first of all, any questions on stormwater?
So does that letter, none of us have seen it, does that letter explain the flow off the curtain drain, the flow
No.
through the culvert under the
That will
driveway?
come with his study when he does that.
What is the timing of the study?
Pardon me?
What is the timing of the study? When-
As I just said, I don't know. They just engaged in the last week to 10 days with Green Mountain Engineering.
Which we cannot approve without having an approved stormwater plan in hands, right? So,
Well, you could
Well-
conditionally approve it upon completion of the amendment of the stormwater permit. I'm not trying to tell you what you could. I'm speaking out loud.
yeah, we just normally actually see the plans. I think before we approve, that seems like a pretty big thing to conditionally approve, but that's just me
I mean,
speaking.
what if you didn't get a plan? And we approved something that wasn't approved?
Then it nullifies a two-lot subdivision.
Well,
It's just like if you,
it would be
If the
kind of like
sto-
a double contingent approval.
I could look at it that way.
It's not
People-
ideal from
towns
our
have-
perspective.
Towns have approved subdivision without the wastewater permit in hand conditionally upon receipt of. So, that, I use that as an example.
But what's different here is this town requires that a plan be submitted that at least can be approved by the state in recognition of the fact that the state sometimes can take a bit of time in their approvals. I think what's confusing for the board is there's going to be some changes that are going to be made to this design, to what's here. And it's really, can you speak as far as what type of proposed changes, what type of things might be required, what may actually change, what may actually happen?
No, I'm a surveyor, not an engineer. And they've engaged the same firm that did the original stormwater permit, only made sense. They're familiar with the property. And the question you have is when, and I cannot share that with you as I do not know.
So this is one of the grandfathered 12-acre subdivisions
This is one of the 10 to
that
12
were
acre.
under time constraints to get approved finally by the end of March.
March 30th, correct. They needed approval by that time. There is some time. No, I mean.
Well, this is the last one hanging out there, and so it's not like we have 8 to deal with on the eve of destruction, so to speak. I would be more comfortable requiring more thorough engineering before we do an approval.
If there was a plan waiting for approval, we would have something to look at, but without any plan to review at all, it's kind of hard to make a true decision, I think.
I think postponing until we can get something to look at would be good, and I think there's time. To continue on a little bit, what I don't see, I haven't seen any pictures of well shields, or wastewater shields.
Yeah, that's actually on this plan.
Oh, that's on the site plan.
It's actually right over here. I'll zoom in a little bit. Over here is the proposed, well, actually.
There's no shields, right? I mean,
That's this line over here. That's the isolation distance.
Yes.
Here's the well, here's,
oh, I thought that was a topo line, okay.
right, and this over here is, I guess, the proposed well, which is just outside of this well shield.
But do we see the shield for the neighboring well?
That's this circle
That's
right
it there,
here.
okay.
So that shield and the circle for that well and the adjoining property overlap.
Yes. And keep in mind, they can overlap. You just can't have
That's right.
the
Yeah, I
well and
remember.
the isolation
Yeah.
distance and each
So
one.
it's just a slight difference there.
So I have a question. Scott Webb, whose property is the closest and whose well that is along with my wife and here. The contour lines, which you notice, it is extremely flat there. The soils are, I mean, I've had geology classes, I've had hydrology classes, college level, I've had mapping classes. Common sense tells you this is not okay to do. And everyone in here is, when does common sense come into play? There are not enough perk tests done on the property, the survey. There were parts of the parcel that were not perk tested, where that septic system could possibly go. And without being perk tested, there's no way of knowing if they could be closer to Silver Street or towards the back of the property, or even farther back from where the proposed septic is along that ridge.
My answer to that is, our regulations revised several years ago defer to the state. The state has issued a permit, and I, for one, felt bound by that.
We filed an appeal to
And
that.
if you are aggrieved by that, to my mind, your appeal is not here, but in environmental court.
So is it ever possible to do something different based on new knowledge? Because when I got,
Not with the we're bound by our regulation. Our regulation says all on-site sewage disposal systems shall meet the standards specified in state regulations, period. There's a state permit in place. I, as a board member, as much as I'm sympathetic to your concern, don't feel I have the power to ignore the state permit.
okay, here's another thing. The whole timeline of events, when the first meeting happened, Sherry and Deb were here, we had a discussion about the driveway placement, and we were fine with the existing one. There was never a talk about where the septic would go. There was never another meeting until back in September, October of this year. When it came on, we got a notarized letter, certified letter, that this is where it was. There was never a discussion about, oh, and then someone said at the last meeting, well, this should have come up earlier. It's like, we had no knowledge of where the septic was gonna be placed.
Well, everybody knows now, and we're basing it on the record as it's currently before us.
And Scott, I think you're mixing up the state process and the town process. The state is the ones that's actually working with the water wastewater. And we just basically require that plans be shown that can get a water wastewater system. I'll just also comment that a lot of times, people who are very experienced with site design and septic designs will oftentimes walk in an area. And Ron, you could probably comment on this. They'll walk in an area, they'll see the basic types of soil, they'll just look at it and say, there's no way this is gonna work, and they ignore it. So it may have been a situation like that. I don't know if that's the case or not.
In this case, on this particular undeveloped lot, we look at where they wanted a proposed house site, then we try to have the septic site somewhere in that vicinity once we do our test bits. The most important part of the test bits is determining the water table. It has to have so many inches of above the water table to the finished soil, natural soil on top. And so that it fit there. The soils were good enough. It is going to be a mound system because it is a high water table. Anything to the south and west of the house site is too high a water table. Possibly something along Mead Road is an out, but that's what we submitted. The ladies were okay with what we put together, and obviously we don't just throw this on a piece of paper without understanding where people's source of water is, because we have to meet certain isolation distances, and we did. The state agreed, and the state issued the wastewater permit. Yes, the zone of that septic system is on the Webb's property, but it is short of their well. And as Scott alluded to, that is fairly flat going from the septic site to his well, and the natural flow is to the west, as you can look at the contour lines. And there's a culvert across Mead Road right there. So that will pick it up. Obviously, there'll need to be another culvert underneath the driveway once that's constructed. And that driveway, existing drive right there is the existing drive off Mead Road onto this lot.
Did you know there was a crushed culvert on there already?
Did I know that?
Could I just make a point, Rosemary Webb? Our land where the well is located, it isn't just flat, it is depressed. I mean, we have standing water in that part of the yard, almost, after rain, there is always standing water there. It's super high water table. And, my concern is the proximity and the fact that the water is all flowing towards us, like coming from,
You're talking about over here, everything kind of comes into here?
Yes.
yeah, everything is running north.
All right, because you
And
have a low
so-
spot here, you've got a low area. Over here, that's
Yes.
going in that direction.
Yes.
And this is going in that direction.
But in between, it's the,
What's the depth of your well?
we had it replaced in '99, I think.
It's
Uh,
deep.
It's pretty deep. I could,
Okay.
drilled in the early '70s. We tried to find out, it was before Frost was doing it. He did the replacement well. And I went on the website, couldn't find out who drilled the existing one. Wade was the person who developed, and then Ducharme was who we bought the house from, and there was nothing when I put their names in to.
I thought that had been land records.
Actually, it was in the well logs. I could look that up.
Sometimes
If
it
it's
only takes a
important.
spelling. I've tried to find mine once, and it's a little misspelled typo along the way, and all of a sudden your search results start.
Mhm.
hard.
Actually, that's right, because yours was not in the database for some
Yeah.
great reason, as I remember.
Well, I mean, not that I'm an expert on wells, but have some experience with it, and I know that the deeper they are, the less that they're affected by immediate groundwater circumstances or surface water circumstances. So that may not be a consolation. I'm not saying take that to the bank, but
I guess my basic takeaway from this is, though, we, as a town, have decided in revisions to the regulations that I wasn't a part of, to defer to the state on
I
these
think that's the
issues.
overriding.
And for better or worse, I think our hands are tied on these issues.
Do you have you mentioned an appeal to the state?
Yep.
Is that in process?
Yep, because when we got the letter, it's 30 days from when it was issued, and it was November 16th or something, so last Friday, I emailed the person and with our concerns, because last Saturday was the deadline. I mean, there's just the timeline has been compressed. And I just wish the easy solution is just either find another place on that 3 acres, put the septic, or put in a different system that could be put with a high water table. It'd be more expensive.
My guess is, their answer to that is they probably put $5,000 in engineering into that particular site, and it works with the state, so why should they do that?
What's
Because it's the right thing to do.
what's the state's response on the appeal?
It's still in process.
It sounds like just a notice of appeal has been filed, so we're months and months and months away from a complaint and answer, so,
Yeah, and the challenge with this particular project is that March 30th deadline, because if this is appealed and remanded, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know whether that would require or discount them in some particular way, because if the approval is somehow undone in some way. The only question I would just simply have is...
well, I mean, the stormwater issue is something
Yeah, they're
we can put on their backs. We can move forward with the other stuff. I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, we're a ways from approving this if it is approved, so, I don't know how long, any idea?
The long and short of it, Dick, is we're not, if there's an appeal from the state wastewater permit, that's not gonna be decided within the lifetime of this application, even before March of 2018, no way.
And they
No
may be
way.
able to...
So,
Okay.
that's just something that's gonna be on the back burner. But the water diversion issue, I mean, is something I think we can certainly require the applicant to come forward with a plan for.
Well, when I speak to the engineering firm, now that I've got a timeline I need to meet, I
Well,
will.
we have a timeline, which is the end of
Right,
March.
but you also need his plans before you
Yeah.
approve this
Yeah,
subdivision.
yeah.
So I will make him aware of the concerns around the driveway and the septic site, since they're in close proximity to one another, to address runoff, to ensure that it's running westerly and not northerly towards the road and towards the Webb's property. So,
And is there any possible intersection between the wastewater and the runoff issues? My guess is probably not, but
Well,
it would be
there's
good
one-
for an engineer to address that issue.
There's one particular thing on it. There's this curtain drain, and it outfalls into some type of swell here. And this curtain drain, according to the details, is 3 feet below ground and below this particular grade minimally. So have you checked whether the curtain drain is able to to daylight into the swale that's over here?
I can't address that.
All right, I would just simply recommend that be, you talk about intersect
Sure.
of those types of things.
The idea of the curtain drain was to intercept the runoff from that little ridge that's ledgy right there
Right,
on
right
the
over here.
right side of that solid line.
Mm-hmm.
And so not to oversaturate the mountain and running around that mound. There's no reason why, that mound is built level. So there's no reason why that curtain drain couldn't intercept a runoff and tilt that curtain drain to the south and have it run around the south end of that mound too.
And any engineering opinion on the stormwater stuff should address whether, my guess is it's unlikely, but should at least consider whether stormwater changes could impact wastewater issues.
And vice versa, I'm short of hearing. The nature of that curtain drain has some impact. The nature, as I understand things, the nature of that curtain drain proposal has some impact on stormwater as well. Because it's either gonna go to the culvert along Mead Farm Road in daylight, or it's,
I assume it's gonna affect stormwater. I was more concerned about wastewater as secondary impacts.
well, and what I'm saying is I'm worried that the curtain drain to protect the mound will impact stormwater. And I would say in my limited conversation with Green Mountain Engineering,
stormwater permitting, as I understand, is usually around impervious areas and things like that, right? The amount of impervious area that goes into that's where the stormwater is going to be generated from. I think the fact that a curtain drain that is handling, in essence, surface water from the neighboring lot also needs to be accounted for, has another impact on the stormwater design. You're not just talking about when these people put in a driveway, you're talking about protecting the water that comes off the existing lot on that hill, that's got to be handled properly by a stormwater system.
So folks, I guess the takeaway for me is we're getting down to the deadline on this. You're the last application here, so we as a board don't have 25 of these 12-acre, 2-lot subdivisions hanging out there. So we have time to invest in, some time to invest in your project, but you've got to get your ducks in a row because time is running out for you.
Understand. And I guess my misunderstanding is I was kind of fell into the middle of this partway through the process. I wasn't aware that the stormwater should have been completed. I wasn't aware until it was brought up the last hearing, and it should be completed and turned into you folks prior to us coming to hearing. But I'm getting smarter as we go through this process here in Hinesburg.
That's good.
Can I just piggyback on that?
I must say that I was surprised that it was a neighbor showing up that triggered stormwater concerns. Maybe it was going to happen in the board deliberation process, but it didn't sound like that. And I was a little bit chastised for being so late in the process. I got to think, hey, I hope this stuff doesn't land on a nosy neighbor's responsibility.
Okay,
Right.
staff can't be expected to identify every issue in every application.
Stormwater's all over the news in Vermont.
But they address stormwater in every application. They don't know the land as well as neighbors do.
No, so just isn't there a check yes or no on stormwater in the
There's
proposal?
more to it than that.
Okay, sure, I'd love to hear.
Basically, if you look at this particular site, I'm just going to zoom out here a moment. Okay, and you look at what the very basics are that's going on this site. You have the existing ground, how it's actually set. You can see how there is a stream coming this way, a stream over here, and if you, in a bigger map, it can actually show all of that. But the total impact, and it's actually in our regulations, and if you want, I can email you the specifics. But basically, if it's over 10,000 square feet, then you have to have a stormwater plan, or if you are redirecting a certain amount of stormwater in a particular way. This particular project is going to produce about maybe 3,000 square feet of impervious area, maybe 3,500, something in that range, and it was going to actually just sheet flow into this particular area. Now, looking at that in a general sense, that doesn't seem to be quite an issue. However, what brought this up is that you're saying that your association has a stormwater permit, you have a concern that this stormwater permit is going to be affected. That is an issue that has been brought up to the applicant, and the board is waiting for the applicant to respond to that.
And so I guess, and educate me just only because we brought the concern, otherwise it wouldn't be that this is
Joining an existing neighborhood or anything like that, that wouldn't trigger the stormwater question for you folks.
We require people to get involved in terms of access. We like people to make sure that they have proper access, and if that means being involved with an association, that's one thing. But as far as stormwater and looking at this in terms of stormwater, it's not a major impact onto the whole area. This is not well, the state doesn't actually require a stormwater plan unless you actually have an acre of impervious surface. The town is more sensitive in terms of stormwater. You have to have a stormwater plan in terms of 10,000 square feet. Here you have a situation where the community has brought up a concern. And what we're asking the applicant to do is respond to that concern. And that has
Totally understand.
And that's.
We don't have an engineer to vet every application for subdivisions, of which we could have 20 or 40
I just
or
assumed
60
maybe
in a
there's this
year.
checklist that said
for all the
stormwater permit
stuff.
required or not, you know?
But the thing is, do you understand what I'm saying here as far as stormwater? And let's.
I understand it
and
by looking at the lot in
I can
isolation.
talk about this for
Yeah,
quite
no,
quite
that's
a bit of time. But the point is the actual impact stormwater wise. Here, you're not even after this development, how is the stormwater being concentrated? It's not in this situation. Yes, you're gonna have some that's gonna come off of that driveway that was not there. But the majority of it, the way they're gonna have a house and such in this particular area, it's a relatively flat field. It's gonna basically come out and have a very minimal impact. However, you have a stormwater plan, you have raised the concern, and this board is waiting for the applicants.
Totally understand where we're at right now.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure we're moving forward at this point, especially because this application is going to have to be continued.
Yes.
I've got one last thing. You were mentioning the storm drain. The field in this proposed subdivision floods periodically, and both Paul and myself have had to try and
You talking about over here, or on this side?
To open up that culvert there.
That culvert will plug in the spring. A lot of that field will flood. And I mean, you talk about impacting a septic system, let alone their house and well, but the septic, it floods all the way back there. I mean, it's a different story.
You manually,
Yes.
We've had to
they crawl in there.
hack
Yes.
away at the ice. I mean, we've had torches in there.
My weed torch.
So this isn't like
So
just,
this is the field drive, the culvert there.
yes.
No, we're referencing the culvert that goes under Mead Farm Road.
Yep.
This one right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when that field floods, then Mead Farm Road gets wet, we have ice, we lose the top surface of our road, et cetera. And so it's in everybody's interest to get that culvert under the road open as fast as possible.
What do you have there, didn't you recently?
It's a plastic. It's not metal anymore.
Under Mead Farm Road is now plastic, correct? So this will be our first winter with that.
That's a different thing.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to move we, not postpone,
Continue.
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 January,
I mean, January 2nd might be a little quick, January
We need some
16th.
more engineering. It's up to you.
Understand?
You're into the timeline. Do you have a date that you're asking us for?
I can't until I talk to the Green Mountain Engineering. I would say if we could meet again in February, it gives him upwards to 4 to 6 weeks to do his thing.
We're cutting it short, but
February
So,
6th.
yes.
I'd rather have a better plan than a poorer plan.
You have February 6th, you have February 20th. I would-
20th, February 20th.
That's within 40 days of your drop dead date that subdivision expires or is no longer tenable under law.
I mean, at most, we'll have 2 more meetings after that point to
Was it
finalize the thing.
2 more hearings after that?
No.
Well, no, I mean, date-wise,
Oh, yes, yes,
we would only have 2 more days after the 20th, and it has to be approved by March
Yeah,
30th,
yeah,
right?
Written decision, which could be 45 to, we could actually require you to have everything submitted 45 days before the end of that. We probably wouldn't in this case, but
Yeah,
get you to the.
I would back it
middle
up a
of
little bit,
February.
would be my suggestion.
I would say, why don't you go with February 6th, and if need be, you can continue it again.
Yes.
You better
Well,
front end
February
load your work.
That's,
February
but I
6th.
think that's,
Yeah.
and keep in mind, did you hear the explanation as far as what's being looked for here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Understand, totally.
And if you have questions, talk to our very competent staff.
We communicate often.
Good.
And so I'm not sure, I assume any stormwater study for the curtain drain flowing into the swale by the road would have to somehow account for the amount of estimated water coming off that knoll. I don't know who you need to contact to find out what that amount of water is. So you know how much you'd be dumping into the ditch. But I assume that has to somehow be part of it.
Leave that up to our engineer. I'm a land surveyor.
Okay. It's all on property owned by the current applicant, right?
Yes.
The two
And
pieces.
if any neighbors have additional stormwater concerns, whether they relate to just strictly stormwater or the connection between stormwater and wastewater, get those to Mitch and/or the applicant as soon as possible. I wouldn't be too sympathetic to a new issue being raised on February 5th about stormwater that hadn't been brought to anybody's attention, given the time constraints on this application.
Understand.
And if I may, I'd just like to reference, I emailed the property owners on September 14th acknowledging that there's a stormwater permit that they need to be adjacent to or participate in. So they knew about this on September 14th and replied to me, thanks for the heads up. So efforts have been made.
Okay. So I'd move to continue the meeting to February 6th, I think it was.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy holidays.
We just have a bunch of deliberations to go through, I think.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye.
Let's see. So is everybody participating in all of them?
I wasn't here for the Jillian Bartel, no, not that one, I was here for that one. I wasn't here for the one on Black Dog Road. I think I came late for that one.
Okay, we can do that one last, I guess. All right. We're starting with this one. Will and Colleen McKinnon.
That's the one on Black Dog Road.
Did I just,
Is this the one you want to do last? So Sarah can do
no,
it?
actually, I don't even know.
You
how
want to do
got up
Francis?
there.
Oh, sorry.
You know what, that's, let me just check. No, actually, I wanted to start with the,
Eschers, yeah. This is a complicated project. Huh?
I love those Eschers, yeah. Let's see, why did you know that? Actually, I thought we were gonna start with rec fields.
That's what you have.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think I was here for Will and Colleen McKinnon. But that's fine, I mean,
From the comment that was made, was regarding the cedars that happened to be there,
yep.
or I should say the cedars that were to be placed, and then, and that weren't placed. And the discussion was, well, do they owe that type of, in terms of the fee amount, or the amount to actually spend, I should say, on the minimum landscaping amount. And going through that, we had finding a fact, trying to see which one that was. Yeah, where this was calculated out. And it turns out that they still have sufficient value. Basically, $14,080 worth of landscaping was required in terms of the amount. They originally had it at $21,070, and the value of what they actually now are presenting is $15,070. So it actually meets this requirement. But what you could say is that the screening that would be removed if you happen to not have those particular cedars, that's something the board could require. So the recommended changes, this was the change that, as discussed at the last deliberation.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, the order, which basically says within 1 year of new structures being issued between,
You're basically talking about haystack.
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So this way here, if that's when that actually takes place, you could require that those cedars be placed, or that they come back for that particular.
No, I think that makes sense, not to put something that isn't necessarily necessary, but it gives us flexibility to consider what's going forward within the year.
This is the wording you sent out,
Yeah.
basically. It's
Yeah.
not changed.
Yeah.
Okay, and I
think
was fine with it.
I'm fine.
Yeah, so I would just comment that the formula is just a starting point.
That's right.
Right, that doesn't mean we have to do just the formula and only the formula.
Yeah.
We can ask for more. And I did read your email, but it was way late, about a week later. And you said something about you didn't think it would be defensible. I don't think we have to defend wanting to maintain, I mean, they came in as a request to modify the site plan to reduce the amount. There's nothing that the board has to grant every request.
True.
So, you know, even if we said, no, we want you to keep that money available, and however we worded it, what we want you to keep it available for, I don't think we have to defend why that I mean, it was originally decided a certain amount of landscaping funds should be set aside for this project. If it's deemed the cedars weren't the right place to do it, then come back and talk about a better place to do it. But I don't think that automatically means you get to, right, because you're not placing something that you said you were going to place, that you get to lop off the amount of money that was, you know, assigned to that.
Totally
So,
fair.
so- and this is fine to me.
Decision allows us to do that.
This is really just a
And I think we're, as
visual
a
buffer.
board, we're all on the same page with you, Dick.
Okay.
We don't want to be played.
All right.
So
I
I
guess
would
we
move
didn't
to
amend
approve
anything,
as
right?
amended.
Any seconds?
Second?
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Very good.
And the next one, let's see, is McKinnon. I think it's that one there. Let's see. There's nothing
I didn't have any red marks on this one, so.
Yeah, no, just,
I've got to learn how to actually make notations here. I'm not sure I had anything on this.
This is the one I can't do, but it doesn't matter. It's not, doesn't sound like it's gonna be a long debate.
Did anyone
I didn't have
see any
anything on this.
issues?
It seemed
and
fine.
Andy, you were on
I
this
didn't see
one,
any.
too.
All right, move to approve as drafted.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Very good.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
One abstain. Cool.
And let's see, what was the next one? Right, I'm skipping this one here, I'm gonna go to Bartolo next.
Okay, skipping
That's the
fences.
N.
Yeah, and I think, let's see, I think this one here is Bartolo, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
I also didn't make any red marks on this one.
So what about, are there any existing lights that are not downcast and compliant?
There are two existing,
They were described as floodlights, and I'm not sure that is compliant with the regulations.
they're one of these, they're pre-existing,
Yeah, but if we're upgrading the property, I think we should require any existing or new lighting to be compliant.
the new lighting, it would be, but.
I
you can-
understand that, and it just wasn't clear from either the presentation or the draft whether the existing floodlights are compliant, and if they aren't, I think they should be.
Yeah, let me just bring this up.
And a
here.
150-foot watt floodlight can be pretty bright from surrounding properties.
It does say there is also a 100 watt downcast light also on the west side of the barn, more towards the center of the wall.
You can make them change what's pre-existing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
As a condition of, yeah, we could make them upgrade existing lighting.
I think the other one that was the problem though is there are currently 150 watt floodlights located on the residence facing the
I have
barn.
a sketch up on the screen if you need.
Okay, so it's the 150 ones that wouldn't be downcast. They're on the house facing the barn.
Right, you've got one here, and you've got one over here. That's the existing flood. This is the existing down light from the,
They mentioned one's on the house. That's not, the house isn't shown, is it?
right,
Oh,
this
It's
is
on
the house
the
here.
lower portion.
And I assume those lights are shining out
Right.
to the barn, which probably doesn't comply, but
There were comments from.
the neighbors.
owner- Well, I think I can't remember if it was the neighbors or the owner commenting that the neighbors had had said they could see one.
They could see, but it didn't really bother them.
Yeah, it wasn't clear whether, you could see lights even if they're downcast. Whether you're looking in the bulbs or not is another issue.
It was the one, I think, like, north of the barn.
I thought it was actually the existing flood on the house.
Oh,
But
really? I
could-
think it was
could
like
be wrong, I
them up
don't-
there, but I don't know which, oh, did they actually saw? I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't, that's what I was trying to
Yeah.
clarify, I don't remember.
Yeah, because the people I thought were maybe
Yeah, they
over
are,
here,
yeah.
because the barn would probably block anybody up there.
And they chose not to come then.
So
After
I don't know.
offers.
As a person that has floodlights in the driveway that we turn on only once in a blue moon, I can understand having some floodlights. I mean, it's a rural area. You're not going to have light posts.
And you can still have a light that casts a great deal of light, but it has to be shielded, and I don't see any problem with requiring them just for a significant commercial improvement of the property to upgrade the existing lighting. Small demand, to my mind.
Can I guess, just for the record, can you show them, where does it say you can demand them to change that? Just so I know.
Well, all lights
Where
must
we're-
be shielded.
it's a
I
site.
mean, yeah.
We're
It's
we're
a site
dealing with a site,
visit
this is
or
part of
site
the site
plan.
plan.
So pretty much
It's a-
everything's.
It's a united site plan.
Okay.
So, I
mean,
guess
it's
I
a
don't have an
couple lights,
objection
so it's
to,
not-
I'm sorry?
It's just a
requiring-
couple lights, it's not financially demanding for them to.
No, that's,
No, it's,
Right.
I wasn't trying to.
Right, no,
No,
so I-
yeah,
so
to
I-
find
that's-
some way to
I
shield,
felt better about that too.
to
Yeah,
shield the
I mean, if
existing
it
lights, I
hadn't
guess.
changed 30 lights, then you say, wait a minute, let's discuss
That's
it.
2 lights. And it's complying with the current.
So we're talking, Greg, about requiring that the existing floodlights be
I mean,
basically,
They talk about lights, it wasn't clear to me whether they're compliant, they may be compliant, I don't know. It just seems to me, as a board, we ought to be a little concerned about all lighting for, that, all of this correlates into the commercial project they're developing. Any proposed additional lighting has to be compliant. I'm not sure why any lighting that actually serves it in a pre-existing way should be any less compliant. I mean, they're asking us for an approval.
I agree.
It's just a kind of a little way to upgrade things in the town. And it's not a densely populated area, but
And I think
I,
that was,
I'm,
yeah.
I can see somebody a mile away across Silver Street, a mile away, right, who's that doctor? The old doctor? At
Oh,
Lewis
yeah.
Creek Road?
Yeah.
He has 4
Yeah.
lights above his garage that are not downcast and shielded, and they are on every night, and from a mile away, I see them, and it looks like the top of the Eiffel Tower. And they're on from 6 until 8 in the morning. They're very prominent, a mile away. So, I mean,
well, we're talking about.
that's a different situation.
I would agree.
Lights
Yeah.
can mean something, though.
You also turn that to different people, but, yeah, whatever.
So I think conclusion 6 then would have to be modified, because it currently says the existing and proposed downcast lighting is adequate. So the proposed is absolutely downcast.
All right.
And well, it goes on to say it will not create off-site
It's
glare.
unclear whether the existing lighting is compliant with the existing regulations about downcast and shielded. And in a conclusion, we could just say that any existing
non-compliant.
lighting, in addition to proposed lighting, shall be downcast and shielded.
Human
Such that it-
existing lighting is compliant with existing regulation.
Well, anything proposed would have to be, and anything
Existing.
that's out there now would have to get corrected if it's
So-
non-compliant.
Yeah, conclusion 6, I think you could modify very slightly then, is the existing lighting shall be made compliant.
Well, we don't know
Um,
it's not. I
well,
don't think the record is clear, if it's not.
If not, shall be made compliant, and along with the proposed downcast lighting, such that it will not create off-site.
Actually, I could
No,
take.
that's not a conclusion.
I could take off here, the proposed downcast lighting is adequate and will not create, and then say something
Yes.
like that, some of the existing, actually, I'm not sure if this is a finding of fact or a conclusion.
Finding of fact
Some-
could say the record is unclear as to whether the existing floodlights are compliant or not.
Yeah, so you do sort of say that in finding of fact
We just didn't
9.
have any testimony about it. We don't know.
So, yeah,
Actually, I put out the, no, this is, actually explains, finding of fact 9 explains what exactly they have.
100 watt down.
But
well,
And
there's,
explains
on the
whether-
side of the barn is a 100 watt downcast, but the first sentence, the second sentence is currently there are 150 watt floodlights located on the residence facing the barn.
And on the west side of the barn, on the corner away from the residence. So, I mean, just simply I was basically just in,
That describes
And the-
what is.
yeah, that's all that happens to be. So maybe you can just simply,
isn't the conclusion 6 not correct then?
Yeah.
As long as you take out the existing and just say conclusion 6 would be the proposed downcast lighting is adequate and will not create off-site glare. You could, I think, do another conclusion that
The existing
Just-
lighting.
the existing lighting per, finding of fact 9 shall be made compliant, shall be.
If the existing lighting
If the
is
exist-
not compliant,
Yes,
it shall be upgraded
yeah.
to comply with our regulation.
that sounds more like an order. I'm just thinking in conclusion, you might want to say something at the back. The existing lighting.
You're right, that is.
May not be compliant.
Well, the existing lighting, why don't we just say it for what it is? The existing lighting is.
It is
not-
unclear whether the existing lighting is compliant.
That can
That's
be a conclusion.
because it's also finding of fact. I don't think we have to agonize over whether it's a finding of fact or conclusion. The long and short of it, we're gonna order them to
Bring it all
make
up.
sure.
Make it
that
all compliant.
Everything,
All right.
So is there an added order as well that?
Yes.
yeah, there's gonna be an
Yes.
order that says
You
the
must.
existing floodlights, to the extent that they're
So you
non-compliant, shall be
concluded that
upgraded.
it's not clear.
Existing lighting, how about?
You find or
Some existing lighting is not downcasting.
We don't know that. It may be. The record is unclear. That's a conclusion or a finding. It
Some of
could
the
be both.
existing, it is not clear, then why not just say that it is not
From
clear?
a finding of fact, it is not clear from the record as to whether the existing floodlights are compliant with the downcast and shielding requirement.
You have an extra piece of paper. I'll help you out with this.
Mitch, I could send you something tomorrow.
All right. And, all right, and then we can
Let's
put
not
an
agonize
order,
over it right now.
we can put in an order from that, that basically then would do.
If it is not, it shall be upgraded.
Okay. We have time to table this until our next meeting, or we probably do.
I think we could tweak that enough that.
We could do it email if we, yeah.
And we're okay with the utility pole being flexible? Remember they wanted the ability to. be able to-
That's
Oh,
Francis.
yeah, Francis, sorry. I was thinking already.
Sarah's ready to move on.
I am. It's like Christmas week and there's gifts to be wrapped and cookies to be made.
All right, so I
Okay,
mean,
so
you're
I'm fine if
talking
those are the
about
changes.
really one change to a conclusion and one additional order,
Yep.
which, if you're comfortable with that, I don't see why you can just.
Approved by
something
email.
to that.
So Mitch can do something and we'll sign off on it.
Well,
Or we don't.
and you
have
can
to
send me
sign off.
something, send me something I could.
We don't have to sign off on it.
Yeah, but something that, Dick, would you be comfortable signing something along those lines?
I believe so, yes.
So
So-
I will move to approve as anticipated.
As potentially
Well, as
amended.
As amended,
You
yeah.
got the basic.
Per the discussion, and Mitch will finalize the language.
I'll second.
I don't need to see it again.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Right.
Okay.
It's a good thing I'm off this week, so you can give me a call at home when it's ready to sign, I guess.
And
Now,
30 days for a short term sounds sensible.
now, Francis is a little bit of a story. And let me just turn this, I think it's that one. There was an issue in the sketch plan that we didn't fully address. And that is that a property has to have a minimum width throughout, and I can quote the regulation on this, that is 100 feet
Well,
across.
I thought, I put a question mark on that, because I thought we fixed that.
Yeah.
2 meetings ago, I thought
Yeah.
they rearranged things so that they had at least 100 foot.
Yeah.
But they didn't have that in, and I was actually, I think it kind of confused a few of us on that. So, in picking up the fact that a portion of what they proposed, and maybe it'd be best if let me pull the thing up here.
Site
with
plan?
Francis, yeah, I'm gonna.
So
I'm
it's
gonna
it's that little
show-
connector piece, right, that you're talking about?
Yeah, let's see, that would be, I think it's in here. Yeah, let's do this. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Actually, it's too far in. You've got, actually, maybe I should just start by just showing you the whole thing here. You've got this kind of odd shape that's over here, and you've got the area, literally, it's a sliver right over here that would have to change, and an area over here that would have to be cut. It's an area around here like this.
But they were supposedly gonna do all of that.
I mean, I
Right?
thought the only pinch point was there where the hand is at, and I thought
Were
they.
these some sketch plan issues?
Yeah.
So you're saying those 2 corners at either end
Don't have the 100
don't
feet.
have the 100-foot distance.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem if the one on the upper right doesn't comply to the 100-foot, then there's quite a length on the other end that would not comply.
Right.
I mean, you'd have to chop off quite a little chunk there.
Well, it's actually something like this.
Yeah.
Something like that would be just.
How does that affect the acreage of Lot 2? And that's still just fine.
Yeah, it meets the requirements and such.
Okay.
And if we look at 20-foot side yard
Mhm.
that goes around on interior lots setback, it ends up slicing like a little sliver like this
Okay.
off the building envelope. However, the applicant, when I let them know that, you didn't fulfill this part, asked if they could reopen the hearing to discuss it. So I'm just gonna put it to you, there's a couple of different things you can do. You can, I guess, you could reopen the hearing and just have a discussion on this issue. You could approve it, but condition this particular change. They're asking if you could possibly waive the regulation, which I don't
Can we
No,
pull up the
we-
minutes?
we asked them to
did
fix
we
it
discuss
once.
it?
Well, it seems to me easy. One is reopen is fine, waiving is not fine. If they're asking to reopen, why should we just condition it?
Yeah, but probably, Greg, the purpose of the reopeoning is to
Just for them
persuade
to
us
try to
to
get a
go along
waiver.
with this. And if that's
Well,
not acceptable,
okay,
why?
Well, then you can let them know that we're fine reopening it, but we're not looking
It's
to
not
let
gonna
them
get
waive
waived.
anything. I mean, this was supposed to be fixed
Can we just
before they
pull
ever
up-
came back for
Can we pull
final.
up the, I feel like we should pull up the minutes to make sure that we said that.
You talk about to the last meeting?
Well, not to the last meeting, but from sketch,
one
can
prior.
we pull up
Before.
that? Cause it would've been from sketch that we did that. It hasn't come up lately.
No, it wasn't,
This is what we looked at last time,
Yeah.
I'm
that
not sure
did-
you're on the board then, Ralph. And it was,
originally.
no.
The sketch. No, I don't think I was.
Sketch
I don't
probably
remember it
2
at all.
years ago.
No, I was
Hanging
saying
out there for a
the
while.
last time they were here, 2 weeks ago, or
I
whenever
don't
it
think
was.
we talked about that then.
I don't
No,
remember
it
that.
didn't come up. No, it didn't.
So what's drawn in there as a 50-foot right-of-way is not actually 50 feet then, right?
well,
No,
the
it has to be
thing,
100.
that's actually kind of there. And I don't want to give you additional testimony in any type of way, but basically, what they're concerned with is if they pull it back, they're now going to have an easement across Lot 1 for Lot 2 for their driveway.
What's the problem with that? They own both.
I'm just, that was.
I mean,
Can you-
they
can you
already
find the
do,
minutes?
right? I mean, because it sticks out, the driveway sticks out and connects into the
I
butternut
don't have it
lane.
here, I could run,
No.
I could connect to the,
I just,
Do we know when it was initially from? Cause I can't find when it was from.
This is like 2016.
oh,
where
yeah.
does the, I don't understand, Mitch, the easement circumstance that you just described. Why
Well-
do they think there'd need to be an easement if that lot got a little, or if the throat of that access there got wider?
Because basically, and this is kind of a miss on our part with everything, they aren't showing their 50-foot wide easement.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically, these lines here are the edge of their 50-foot easement. So what they're saying is if they pull back,
Yep.
then they have to have an easement for this particular area over here, from one to the other. But then again, they still haven't made they still have not made the deed language and so forth that they're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they haven't filed anything on that, so.
Well, I wasn't there at the beginning. This doesn't seem like a particularly difficult thing to have their surveyor do.
Move the line.
They can
Yeah.
figure it out, but they have to figure it out, and they're under time constraints because this is another one of these subdivisions that expires at the end of March.
Right.
Um,
Although this is obviously a much easier situation than Willett and Campbell.
So I would propose we grant the request to address this. Can we do it at the next meeting?
It has to be rewarned, so it'll be the 16th, January 16th, we can get this on.
We have a meeting on the 2nd?
Yeah, but you know, there's nothing that you have at this point on it, so.
All right, I would move that we, well, I would, did they have a formal request to?
Yes, they did, they sent me an email.
Then I would move that we grant a request to continue this to the January 16th meeting.
Or reopen it at our
Reopen
January
and-
16th
To
meeting.
reopen and, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe give them a weather report that the board may not necessarily,
We'll be looking
So-
for a fix, not a waiver.
yeah, a waiver might not be
That's a good way to put it.
an option. So,
And I would second that.
and
If-
they
if-
have to act quickly, understanding they have, like 10 weeks after that to get it finally approved.
I would just simply say that as somebody who's done a lot of CAD over the years, although I'm so far removed from it, I don't think it would change so much. This is something that a CAD operator could fix probably in less than an hour,
Yeah, yeah.
but, and even add the easement. But, that said, yeah, that's,
I mean,
So,
that,
this,
would
you know,
make
the
the motion.
point is, this shouldn't be a time issue for them.
Okay.
Just to ask the question, because they're gonna, why does it matter if the setback isn't? How are you gonna answer that?
We have to have our regulations at 100-foot wide
Contiguous,
lots.
yeah.
So that's a simple answer?
That's the,
yeah.
You could read the
Then-
regulation.
you have to comply.
Then,
then there's no reason not to
Yeah.
do it here.
And I'm assuming the purpose of that regulation is really to,
They have a lot of land here. I mean, it's their own pinch point that they're creating.
if you just state that
Yeah.
regulation, it's
Yeah.
a done deal.
yeah, I think that might be wise, Mitch, to just refer them again to that regulation and the fact that we brought it up at sketch plan. Or we didn't, you guys
And if you
did.
need to dig it up out of the minutes, but I know we talked about it.
Yeah.
And frankly, these things come back. I assume somebody complied with it. I mean, I could have swore they showed us a plan, look, that's 100 feet.
Actually,
Um,
it's, like I said, it was an internal, it was something that was not in the
Mhm.
sketch plan approval, which, I'll just simply say that there are some changes, and you probably have seen some changes in the reports and decisions and such that we've been providing to you. And we're trying to upgrade this, and this is one that kind of got lost in the middle of the upgrades that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, can I use your mouse? You look at this dimension right there, 74 feet. Okay, from that point to that point. So this is already really close to 100 feet right there. This,
A fair bit less,
Right.
probably less than 74.
I think it was like 60.
whoopsies, am I doing that?
I see your little hand grabbing. so-
Hot hand.
There you go, right there.
But I'm saying that
Right.
is less than 74 feet. That's
Yes.
probably 70 feet, whereas the upper right is probably something
Yeah,
closer.
this
to-
is in the 90s, it's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like.
It's
a little-
close.
It's a little sliver.
So there's not much of an adjustment there. It's really on the left side that there needs to be.
And it's just the bottom edge of that, you were saying, is their current butternut lane right-of-way
Yeah,
boundary.
so the thing with that is, they should probably also come back and actually show that right away, that 50-foot, the dimensions of it. And if they already have a few of them listed there, that shouldn't be too hard.
Especially if that squiggly thing isn't actually the 50-foot right-of-way.
Right, it's much smaller. Yeah. Who's the surveyor on this project? Is it
So once again, move to,
civil engineering? Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
move to
Reopen.
Reopen the public.
grant their request to reopen.
I will second that again. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
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 Is that the end of our old business?
There's some other business, let me just see if I could, let's get rid of that, come back to, let's see, we've got this.
One last question on that one. Another question mark I had was a Butternut Lane Road Association. I thought when we did Balchiunas that,
I thought that was addressed in the draft decision.
it was, but that's what surprised me. I didn't think there was a Butternut Lane Road Association. I thought when we did Balchiunas, I can't, maybe it was
I think they-
Francis,
I think they
said,
agreed.
oh, we have a deed, we don't want to do a road association. They went ahead and did a road association?
Yes, I mean.
Okay, so it's,
Let's see, first thing is, as of right now, there isn't anything on the schedule for January 2nd. It's funny, you've had big meetings and nothing. That's just the way the timing seems to have been lately. But,
Well, it sounds like we have time to deal with outstanding issues at the 16th meeting, so
Yeah.
I don't propose to convene unnecessarily on the 2nd.
I would concur.
I'll
Is
second
there,
that.
there's no other,
There's no new
no applications, but there's no other go over any town news, any,
Well, it was
I
just
mean-
basically, the other thing I just wanted to ask is just, I've mentioned it to a few people already, but VCAM is looking to add some permanent cameras in this room, or at least set up so they can put permanent cameras on it.
Back to 1984?
Well, anyway, is this setup comfortable for you?
Does it work for the audience? I guess that's, it's fine for me as a board member, but I have a little.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm ignoring
Me right here,
the audience a little
I'm
more.
sort of communicating more to the board than to the audience, although I'm easy to turn.
We made the decision to move away from this setup to make it more,
Well, we were more in the
Audience.
center then, and people were against the walls.
I mean, I will say I'm already feeling a kink in my neck from,
Yeah.
from looking over my shoulder and looking over this way.
I mean,
what was the
basically-
decision to move it back to this way?
Well, it was, well, part of it is the select board is now meeting down in this room. They found it a lot easier in that sense.
They sit like this?
And they like this, so does the planning commission. And it's just the thing that's kind of the
Because
impetus
they're
of-
talking, I feel like, at each other mostly, and not to, I feel like we have a
A lot of
different
the planning
setup.
commission, I think there's audience participation in a lot of those meetings.
Yeah.
Comes and goes.
I agree, this is great for the board.
I think maybe we ought to experiment for a couple months and then kind of talk to the people who come occasionally and just have a sense of how they think. And I'm happy to live with whatever
Right,
kind of the
it's just
majority
sim-
feels okay with. It's
Yeah.
not ideal from my perspective, but I'm okay with it.
And just simply the VCAM, I mean, that's kind of, there's been some issues with VCAM as far as being able to pick up sounds,
Yeah.
having the right camera angles and such. And in part, it just also to provide.
Maybe I
better
should be
coverage.
more concerned with the effectiveness of VCAM, but I'm not, in terms of whether we and the public, we as board and the public are interacting well. That's my main concern. But I would like to say, Mitch, you've been here just about less than a year now, still, but for a while. I'm really appreciating your engineering background, and I think your demeanor, especially with this last application, is very useful to the board.
Well, thank you,
Calmness, I
appreciate it.
think it is good, great. So you're a great addition. Hope we don't chase you away too soon.
Well, I told them when I took this, I'd like this to be the last that I do,
Okay.
so, until I retire, so. Happy to be here and thank you, appreciate the, actually I had a kind of an odd day, so it's great to end with a compliment like that. Thank you.
Well,
You very much appreciate it.
You project calmness, which is always helpful in these settings.
Okay. So if there's
Happy
nothing
holidays,
else,
everybody.
we should probably adjourn before we say something that takes you down after you're up now, so.
And Don, you're good too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I call me?
So,
You're definitely calm.
we're adjourned.
But she's trying to be incognito, so.